Our second selection sees 14th place West Ham playing host to 9th place Brighton. And West Ham, they were held to a draw in their last game on the road against Bournemouth. Paqueta put the Irons ahead from the penalty spot late on in the game. However, that lead did only last for 3 minutes before Enes Unal levelled the scores in the 90th minute so that both sides shared the spoils. Numbers-wise, perhaps 1-1 doesn't really show how many chances were created in the match. Both teams combined for 45 shots and a combined XG of 4.07 on the south coast. In terms of form for West Ham, despite the late goal, they have managed to avoid defeat once again. They're now unbeaten in their last 2 matches. That keeps them just ahead of the relegation-threatened teams behind them. They play a Brighton side who were bested by their rivals Crystal Palace in their last match, losing 3-1 in what was a great example of an away performance for the Eagles. Brighton had a lot of the ball in the first 15 minutes of both halves, but were ultimately unable to get the breakthrough against an informed Dean Henderson in the Palace net. In terms of form, this does mean that the Seagulls are now winless in their last 4 as they do begin their slide down the table. In terms of the head-to-head record, last game at the Olympic Stadium was a goalless affair. However, I'm not quite sure how the visiting side Brighton didn't manage to find the back of the net. They had 22 efforts, 8 of which were on target, and this all combined for an XG of 2.38 on the road. In terms of recent form between these sides, it's very mixed. 1 win for each side and a draw thrown in there in the last 3 matches. My prediction for today's game is that both sides have struggled for form of late, and I find it tricky to back a side either way, but I am looking at goals. West Ham have seen over 2.5 goals in 3 of their last 4 Premier League games, and really the Bournemouth match could have seen at least another goal go in as well to make it 4 from 4. In terms of home games in the Premier League, each of the last 2 and 9 of the last 10 games at the Olympic Stadium have seen over 2.5 goals. That dates back to the end of last season in April. The away side Brighton, they've seen over 2.5 goals in each of their last 3 Premier League matches and in 8 of the last 9 matches across all competitions. They've also seen over 2.5 goals in each of their last 4 away games. Finally, looking at the head-to-head record, over 2.5 goals have gone in 2 of the last 3 encounters. But when we isolate for just West Ham's home games, none of the last 3 have seen over 2.5 goals. So with all this in mind, I am still tempted for the over 2.5 position, but in light of the poor head-to-head data, I will temper things with a half stake here in bet number 2.